Drill, baby, drill.
This morning, the Tony Blair Institute calls on Labour to reverse their ban on new North Sea oil and gas licences. Will Energy Secretary Ed Miliband respond?
Is the President prepared to bankrupt the BBC?
The President has made it very clear that this is a leftist propaganda machine that is unfortunately subsidised by British taxpayers.
It's that $10 billion legal battle because Donald Trump's lawsuit against the BBC is now set for trial as the broadcaster plans to cut £600 million from its budget next year.
And unlucky for some, it's Friday the 13th, just before Valentine's weekend. Let's hope nothing unfortunate happens to us too this morning.
They enjoyed
that somehow genuinely terrified me. I don't know how I didn't see it coming.
Yes, I'm glad nobody just appeared behind us when that happened as well. You never know in this place, do you? But usually when technical problems go wrong, it's not the deliberate decision of the gallery, so it's nice that happened on this occasion. We can control the errors.
Yeah, I like that. Well, we can't control anything, but they can back there.
They don't know us. They don't give us that responsibility. And that's a good thing, really, isn't it, to be frank? But yeah, great to have your company this morning. So much to get through today. I'm particularly interested in that Tony Blair Institute report. A bit more of a battle on the left over energy, Olivia, particularly as the Prime Minister's on the back foot. Could he be forced to make another concession there?
It's fascinating, this, because, of course, Ed Miliband is one of the prime contenders for the Labour leadership if Keir Starmer does indeed stand down. He is really unpopular among Labour MPs, who are much more Blairite in their approach to energy, but he's really popular with the party membership. And I think this is, as you say, Charlie, an issue which could really split the left.
And while that potential split is going on, once again, Sir Keir Starmer's out of the country. Over in Munich, a lot of PMs in recent years have enjoyed sort of the Ukraine distraction, haven't they? Showing strength on the global stage. But as he's at this security conference, there are fears that Britain is going to have to give up on some of the promises it's made to Ukraine. We just haven't got the cash or indeed the armaments to give them.
Well, and Keir Starmer spending 16% of his time as Prime Minister abroad. He does rather like to look like a statesman on the world stage, I think it's safe to say. Well, let's see how he gets on in Munich, and we would love to hear what you think about that trip and everything else we're going to be talking about today. Please send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say.
Loads coming up, but let's go now to Sophia Wensler for your news update.
Charlie, Olivia, thank you and good morning. Your headlines from the GB Newsroom. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor reportedly leaked a confidential Treasury briefing to a banker friend while he was trade envoy. That's according to the Telegraph newspaper. It's understood that in 2010, the former prince passed on a memo about the Icelandic financial crisis. Bangladesh's Nationalist Party have claimed victory in the first election since the Gen Z uprising. The BNP, headed by Tariq Rahman, won a two-thirds majority, enough to form the next government. US President Donald Trump has reversed a key Obama-era scientific ruling that underpins all federal actions on curbing planet-warming gases. The Munich Security Conference kicks off today. It marks a year since J.D. Vance criticised Europe on migration and free speech. And two Met Office yellow weather warnings are in force for snow and ice across Scotland and northern England as Arctic air is poised to make a return. Those are your headlines for now. I'll have more news for you at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, welcome to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Olivia Utley.
Well, let's look at live pictures from Germany, where world leaders are arriving for the Munich Security Conference.
It's going to be a significant event taking place this morning, of course. We're seeing lots of world leaders arriving for this discussion. Olivia, of course, very significant amid the turmoil that the continent is in with the war in Ukraine, and the dressing down that JD Vance gave them last year was a remarkable moment, and the reaction that the world leaders had to that at the time was basically say, who do you think you are coming over here and talking to us like that? But has Europe rearmed sufficiently since then?
Well, I think that's a really, really interesting question. And as you said earlier, Charlie, I think traditionally world leaders have rather liked the distraction of Ukraine looking powerful on the world stage, being able to promise things. This country which has been invaded in such a horrific way, and yet now these leaders are having to live up to the truth that their armies, their supplies just aren't really good enough to be funding this war anymore.
Yeah, and don't have the capability to make up for it if the US pulls away. I think we just saw a Saudi minister arriving there, just going to show the broad international interest that the Munich Security Conference still gathers. We'll be getting back to this later when there are more developments, but let's move on now. At 37 minutes past 9, we're going to talk about the Ministry of Justice ordering the deletion of a large archive of court records, raising concerns that it could sabotage the upcoming national inquiry into grooming gangs.
Yes, a data analysis company called Court's Desk supports the media with monitoring court records. The company claims to be the only system that tells journalists what is actually happening in the criminal courts.
Well, the Minister of State for Courts and Legal Services, Sarah Sackman, explained the reasoning for the decision in the comments this week. Here's what she said.
What has arisen is that this private company, Court's Desk, has been sharing private, personal, legally sensitive information with a third-party AI company. That includes potentially the addresses, the dates of birth of defendants and victims. And this is a direct breach of our agreement with them.
Well, the government say journalists continue to have full access to court listings, hearings, and all the information is still available for free online, by email, in courts and by phone. Well, we're joined now by Shadow Justice Minister Dr. Kieran Mullen to discuss this. Now, is it true, the government's claims, that journalists still have access to all of that information? Because your colleague, Katie Lamb, was speaking in the Commons yesterday and said that actually the government information often isn't correct. In just 4.2% of cases is the information that government lists online accurate?
Good morning, and as Katie pointed out, technically there may be ways in which some of this information is still shared, but the reason why Court's Desk was brought in by our government actually previously was there was just a widespread acknowledgement that the way in which it was shared was insufficient, that people had to wait to be emailed things by individual courts. They wouldn't always necessarily email them, and if they did email them, it would very often be incorrect information, and there was no way to search the data to understand it better. So if you were following a particular case, perhaps even from one court to another, one individual, and their kind of entire movement through the justice system, you just had to manually go through all these court listings and try and hope that you could track them down. The courts separately were using the same unique identifiers for people, so you couldn't even use those consistently. So the system as it wasn't working, which is why Court's Desk were brought in. And over many years now, the last, I think, 4 to 5 years, they have developed tools that help them collect that data, check it's accurate. They do the hard groundwork of calling courts and saying, you haven't sent the data to us yet, you need to send the data. So an enormous amount of work has gone into it. I think there's two things to think about here. Obviously, there's a back and forth now between this company and the government about what may or may not have happened. But whatever has happened historically, that archive that they've built up over many years is a unique record of what's been going on, particularly in our magistrates' courts. And we are clear that whatever has gone on, that should definitely not be deleted, because it would be essentially impossible to go back over those years and all the work that went into it to reconstruct that database. And journalists right now, if they want to have a look at what's gone on in the past 6 months in our courts, for example, they can use that database. If it's deleted, they won't be able to do that. I actually think they should be able to go back and look even further than 6 months. That data is there, would allow journalists to have an even better idea of what's been happening in our courts, and the government won't let them do that. That's why so many major media organisations have protested this decision, because they know how incredibly helpful this database has been to allow them to scrutinise what is going on in our magistrates' courts. The irony, of course, is that right now the government is planning to erode some of our jury trial rights and saying that instead that we should have more cases seen in the magistrates' courts, at the same time as eroding the way in which our journalists keep an eye on what's going on in the magistrates' courts.
Dr. Mullen, the government say that they are committed to open justice as part of this ongoing debate about this court service and the transcripts access. What do you make specifically of the argument made by the Minister, Sarah Sackman, that the problem here is about private information being revealed? Is it not the case that private information is revealed all the time in courts, and it's up to journalists and others attending to make sure they follow those anonymity orders and reporting restrictions? It's not really the information that's the problem, it's just making sure that people follow the rules.
Well, the people that run this company have done this amazing blog where they lay out in detail, piece by piece, the criticisms that the minister made, and what they point out is that the dates of births and addresses of some of the people, victims and criminals, of course that is sensitive information, but right now that has been emailed out to all sorts of people on an email distribution list. So there can be third-party organisations, charities, there are Gmail and Hotmail addresses on the distribution list that the courts are using right now. So that's what makes this seem slightly disingenuous. You know, the government hasn't been bothered by that issue for multiple years. That's been going on for a long time. It's one of the reasons why this tool was brought in, to try and improve and regulate the way in which that information is shared. Courts Desk have a whole process of accrediting a journalist to be able to log into their portal and make sure that they're the right sorts of people to have access to that information. I don't think that's as robust with what's happening with the emails, and yet this is the reason the government's put forward for stopping the data sharing. It doesn't really stand up to scrutiny, but as I said, either way, whatever may or may not have gone on between Courts Desk and the government, that isn't a reason to delete a unique archive of what's been going on in our courts in recent years.
You say it's disingenuous and doesn't stand up to scrutiny. So why do you think the government is doing this, if not for the reason that they've stated openly?
Well, I think actually the error rate that this company has been producing for the government's version of this data from the courts, that has been consistent for years now. And I think, to be honest, that they're embarrassed. I think that they have been shown to be continually unable to share basic data about what's going on in our courts so that journalists can track cases, as I've said, scrutinise what's happening in our courts. And I think they've just probably had enough of being continually shown to be not delivering the job that they're supposed to be doing. But I really can't see any other rational reason why they wouldn't have sat down with this company who've done such an excellent job. The other thing that the minister said in the statement was that this company hadn't behaved appropriately. They'd been combative with the government. They threatened legal action. What she didn't say was that they had written to the government multiple times, directly to the minister, to advisors in the Ministry of Justice. I think more than a dozen times they had tried to say, can we just sit down and talk about this? Let's figure a way forward. Not only that, but as I said, major media organisations have written directly to the minister saying to you need to come to some kind of solution around this. It's really important that this data continues to be available, and they've just stonewalled all of that. So the company felt they had no choice really that to say, well, actually we do have some legal rights that we'd like to exercise. I think that's a reasonable step to take. The minister made out that they just kind of went straight into combat with the government. That is absolutely not true.
OK, Shadow Justice Minister Dr. Kieran Mullen MP, thanks for joining us this morning. We will, of course, put that criticism that you made to the government for their response, that they've got rid of this service because it's shown them up, because it was doing a better job than the government. We'll be very interested to hear what the government say to that Tory criticism. It's
an astonishing accusation, really, that the government is essentially hiding this really important data because it's embarrassed of its own record. I'll be fascinated to see what the government will say.
I suspect they'll push back on that very hard. But I should say that the court records have been vital on exposing the extent of the grooming gang scandal, and so much of the detail that reporters gathered at the time they didn't share when these trials were going on, that you can later access through these court records, just goes to show the extent of these crimes and the network organisation, the wider links with organised criminality. It's been key to getting this story out there. Losing them would be a tremendous loss to reporters like us here at GBNews.
Well, exactly. Still ahead, Sir Keir Starmer jets off again, this time to the Munich Security Conference, and we're just waiting for him to arrive. I'm sure he'll demonstrate his leadership, authority and statesman-like qualities.
Up next on Britain's Newsroom, teachers are told they must allow children to choose their own gender under Labour's new trans guidance. But is this just piling the pressure on teachers and, of course, on children?
And on the parents too.
Yeah.
But for now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Having seen so much stormy weather across parts of Western Europe recently, finally a change is on the way. It's still windy this weekend in Spain, Portugal and across much of Italy. Spells of rain moving in here, reaching eventually parts of Greece and Croatia. But it is looking drier and brighter for much of Spain and Portugal despite that strong wind. And that steady improvement continues into next week. Still breezy with showers around, but not as stormy as it has been.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Morning, Angela. How are you?
Morning. I'm sitting here in the magnificent Old Bailey, right in the heart of the City of London, and just having a good giggle at you two.
Well, do you remember our dancer? We had a good time with Kai, didn't we?
I do. And you've joined me today because I've actually got just the other side of the wall from where I am at the moment. I've got 100 dancers ready to start performing at 9:30. We've got the press preview of our 2026 Let's Dance campaign, because I think I've told you about this before, Steve and Anne, that on March the 8th, we're hoping that the whole nation will be dancing on our National Day of Dance, when dance teachers all over the country, some between 20 and 30,000 of them, will be opening their doors and saying to people what you've been saying. Dance is the best kind of exercise you can possibly do for your mind and your body. And if you're somebody who wants to get fit, if you're a bit older and you want to keep, having a long and healthy lifestyle, but you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to do a park run, particularly when the weather's like this in the rain, go to a dance class. It is the best exercise you can possibly do. And that's what we're trying to get everyone to understand or to experience on March the 8th. But leading up to that, today we've got our preview, and I've got, as I say, 100 dancers here, 10 dance groups who are all going to show us different forms of dance that demonstrate that dance really is brilliant for any age group and for any kind of dance that you want to do.
Are they all ladies? Because I think a lot of people worry about taking up dancing that they haven't got a natural partner.
Oh no, we've got quite a lot of ladies here, yes. But I mean, for instance, the group of over 60s that have come here from The Place, which is the headquarters for contemporary dance, half men and half women. I've got an entire male group who are dancing for mental health.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. And Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says pupils will now be allowed to change their gender at school, and that's primary school we're talking about.
From the age of 4. Yes, the guidance confirms that although teachers must consult with parents, they should ultimately accept a child's request to socially transition.
Well, joining us now is the Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, Fiona McInerney. I mean, this does seem like pretty extraordinary guidance from the government. What it'll mean in practice is that parents and teachers together, is that right, will get to talk about a child who wants to change their gender and start addressing that child perhaps as young as 4 by whatever pronouns they choose. What was the situation before, and how exactly will this change actually affect parents, teachers and pupils?
Well, the situation before was that there was no guidance, and for many years there'd been a lot of pressure on teachers to go along with any child's request. And that pressure came primarily from outside. It came from activist groups who would go in and give so-called, training, gender awareness training, and all of that. So in many ways, this guidance fills a gap. It actually almost gets there. So there's a lot to welcome in it. It says that if a child is thinking of transitioning, the parents must be involved. That wasn't the case before. There have been terrible reports of children being secretly transitioned at school and their parents not being told. So that's a step forward. It says that transition in primary schools should be very rare. Of course, I think that there should be none at all, because what is transition? It doesn't define what transition means, but it does say that they cannot use the facilities of the opposite sex, that they cannot go into sport for the opposite sex. So where this leaves us is that there's this sort of undefined idea of social transition. It's clear that it's being discouraged, but it's still possible. And the risk, therefore, is, as we know, there are many activist teachers who will encourage and may continue to encourage children to think that they should change their names and pretend to be the opposite sex. And that is not good for those children. It's not good for anyone.
Fiona, do you think there's the right balance of responsibility and intervention in these changes? Because we've also heard from the pro-trans group Mermaids saying that the guidance actively seeks to deny trans young people's existence. That's their argument. I know you take, obviously, very much the opposite view, but from your perspective, is there enough balance in terms of responsibility there to protect children?
Well, this guidance is all about safeguarding and protecting children, and that's the right place for any issues around gender transition to be. You know, previously the plan was to have separate guidance. So this is good. It makes them think carefully about their responsibilities to children and to parents. In terms of balance, I think that, children exist, and whether you play along with their beliefs, which are usually transient, whether you play along with that or not, those children still exist. It's a bit ridiculous to say that it denies their existence. What it does is point out that the people responsible for children's welfare are their parents, and you mustn't do anything without involving them. I think that's a very positive thing. It should have gone without saying. I think what this guidance mostly shows is how far things had slipped, that we are now welcoming a clear statement from the government that says, do not let boys go into children's changing rooms or toilets or sport, because those are for the girls, and do not take radical changes in children's well-being at work without involving the parents. And we're saying, thank goodness, there's a bit of common sense. There's one more thing to say, which is, I think the reason there's a loophole here, which you've correctly identified, is because the government has approved a puberty blockers trial. And so there will be some children with official health service involvement.
Fiona, I think we're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. But it's a really interesting point that you raised, because obviously social transitioning can lead down the path to puberty blockers. Well, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, said the new guidance would deliver pragmatic support for teachers, reassurance for parents, and above all, the safety and well-being of children and young people.
See you in a moment. Lots more coming up on the programme.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Finally, a change in the weather is on the way. Initially today, it's going to feel cold as a different air mass arrives from the north, and as that colder air mixes with milder but wetter weather further south, in between we will see some snow. We're already seeing snow across the North York Moors, parts of the Pennines, even at some lower levels, chance of snow. But over the hills, 2 to 5 centimetres by lunchtime. 10 centimetres over the peaks. Now, it's going to feel cold across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but much brighter skies finally arrive here. Having seen 3 weeks without the sun in Aberdeen, finally a bright day with plenty of sunny spells. But that cold feel and further sleet or snow showers coming into the north of Scotland, predominantly places exposed to the north wind. But South East Scotland also seeing some sleety showers coming through. Northern Ireland, plenty of clear skies as we end the day and go into the evening. A marked contrast compared with the weather throughout much of the year so far. But for much of England and Wales, we've still got the cloud, we've still got the showery rain. However, as the colder air in the north mixes in with those outbreaks of rain, could be some sleet or snow at lower levels through the Midlands, parts of Wales and eventually southern England as the whole system moves through. Any snow, though, very temporary, doesn't last, moves through, and then widely clear skies to begin the weekend. A widespread frost. First one of those we've seen for some time. But plenty of sunshine first thing Saturday, and despite the crisp start with light winds and those bright blue skies, a much more positive spell of weather, albeit just for a few hours this Valentine's Day. A few showers around some eastern and western and northern coasts. The cloud builds in the west later ahead of the next band of rain, but throughout much of Saturday afternoon, sunny skies.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A92 northbound, expect restrictions between Bankhead roundabout and Preston roundabout after a broken down vehicle. On the A55 over Britannia Bridge, high winds remain in place until further notice. In Surrey, the A3 southbound has one lane closed between the A283 at Milford North and the A333 following a breakdown. And on the trains, the Elizabeth line has major disruption between London Paddington and Heathrow Airport and Reading, while Great Western Railway also has major disruption between London Paddington and Reading, with knock-on issues across multiple routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for two people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on Friday, the 13th of February, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley.
Well, there's been another departure in government because Sir Chris Wormald is booted out of Starmer's top team as the Cabinet Secretary, but he's leaving with a hefty £260,000 payout. Not so bad, is it, Olivia?
And confusing our kids, government guidance says 4-year-olds will be able to change their gender at school, but teachers are told to proceed with caution.
And Jet Set Starmer, the Prime Minister, is joining other world leaders at the Munich Security Conference today. They're hoping to achieve peace through dialogue, but the US Vice President J.D. Vance, he rather stole the show last year.
And what I worry about is the threat from within. The retreat of Europe. Free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
What has arisen is that this private company, Court's Desk, has been sharing private, personal, legally sensitive information.
And has there been a court records cover-up? Labour has been accused of deleting case files that revealed the truth about the grooming gang scandal.
We will drill, baby, drill.
From Trump to Tony Blair, because this morning his institute is calling on Labour to reverse their ban on North Sea oil and gas licences. What will the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband say about that?
Is the President prepared to bankrupt the BBC?
The President has made it very clear that this is a leftist propaganda machine that is unfortunately subsidised by British taxpayers.
And that $10 billion battle is back in the news. Donald Trump's lawsuit against the BBC is now set for trial as the broadcaster plans to cut £600 million from its budget next year. I'm so interested to see what happens with this BBC battle. I mean, the government, the BBC, couldn't possibly afford that sort of money if Donald Trump really does go ahead with it. How far is he going to push this? At the time, I thought he was just having the BBC on, seeing how far he could push it, but it's now looking quite serious, isn't it?
Yeah, no matter how far the battle goes, it'll still be very costly. And the point that has to be put to the Trump administration as well, that by suing the BBC, you're also, you're suing taxpayers in Britain. It's going to cause a bit of a hit to our pocket as well. The licence fee is going up, although it's going up under inflation. Was it 185 quid now?
But of course, the licence fee is coming up for review in 2027. This is a really, really difficult time for the BBC. As you saw there, they're having to cut money from their budget, and the licence fee may be completely rethought in just a year's time. So many challenges coming at so many different angles for the BBC. Would love to hear what you think about that and everything else. Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say.
Loads to get into in the next couple of hours, but first let's go and speak to Sophia Wensler with all your latest news headlines.
Charlie, Olivia, thank you and good morning. It's 3 minutes past 10. These are your headlines. World leaders are arriving for talks at the Munich Security Conference today. Officials will discuss the top issues facing the world in 2026, including the transatlantic alliance and Europe's security architecture. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Prime Minister has faced a Whitehall revolt over his decision to sack Britain's most senior civil servant. The Times newspaper is reporting that government officials refused to sign off on the move because it would cost the taxpayer £250,000 that could not be justified. Sir Keir Starmer overrode their concerns and agreed to the payout and sacked Sir Chris Wormold. Shadow Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho called out the Prime Minister's lack of control.
It's chaos. I mean, that's what it looks like. He is going through personnel like he's running through water. And at the moment, he sacked his director of comms. He's not got a cabinet secretary. And it's not clear who is running the country.
Elsewhere, Labour MPs are revolting against Shabana Mahmood's proposed migrant crackdown in a fresh blow to Sir Keir Starmer. It's after the Home Secretary called for migrants to wait double the time to earn indefinite leave to remain. The 35 Rebel MPs joined forces with Britain's largest trade union to oppose the plans, asking her to water down her, quote, deeply unfair migration crackdown. In other news, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor reportedly leaked a confidential Treasury briefing to a banker friend while he was trade envoy. That's according to The Telegraph. It's understood that in 2010, the former prince passed on a memo about the Icelandic financial crisis to Jonathan Rowland, the former chief executive of Bank Haviland, a bank that had bought assets from a failed Icelandic lender a year earlier. The bank was connected to a major investigation by Icelandic authorities at the time. Mr Mountbatten-Windsor, who was the then UK's trade envoy, suggested the information might be useful to his friend before he made a move. Now, Bangladesh's Nationalist Party have claimed victory in the first election since the Gen Z uprising. The BNP, headed by Tariq Rahman, won a two-thirds majority, enough to form the next government. The vote was Bangladesh's first national election since the July uprising of 2024 and was widely seen as a referendum against the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. 60-year-old Rahman is now poised to become Prime Minister months after he returned from 17 years in exile in London. He has made many big promises about restoring law and order, ending corruption, rebuilding infrastructure and healthcare. He has also promised to empower women. US President Donald Trump has reversed a key Obama-era scientific ruling that underpins all federal actions on curbing planet-warming gases. The move has been criticised by environmental groups, but the White House has called the reversal the largest deregulation in American history, saying it would make cars cheaper and bring down costs for automakers. The UK is sending more than £500 million in new air defence missiles and systems to Ukraine as Russia's attack continues. For the first time, £150 million of that package will fund equipment bought directly from the United States as part of a NATO initiative. And two Met Office yellow weather warnings are in force for snow and ice across Scotland and northern England as Arctic air is poised to make a return. Today is set to feel much colder for the UK, with temperatures plummeting overnight, bringing the first widespread frost of February. Those are your latest GB News headlines. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia, and welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Olivia Utley. We're looking through all of you getting in touch on gbnews.com/your say. Mary Poppins has got in touch. Speaking about Starmer at the security conference. Oh, he's off again to Munich, should be back for 6 p.m, then off to Chequers for the weekend. A very popular comment, and I think with good reason, Olivia. I mean, I don't know if you've read this piece in The Spectator, anyone at home, but Tim Shipman's written on sort of the inside track on how Starmer is struggling at the moment, Olivia. But there's one piece in there, one quote from an official saying, from Friday afternoon until Monday morning, rather, they just don't hear from the guy. He's not actively pestering them, aides and officials, like some more recent PMs have done.
Well, I remember in the run-up to the election, Keir Starmer said that he wanted to finish work at 6 o'clock on Friday, and all of us journalists sort of rolled our eyes thinking, well, you've got no idea what it's like to be Prime Minister. You won't be finishing work at 6 o'clock on Friday. But perhaps he is finishing work at 6 o'clock on Friday, and maybe that's part of the problem. The Keir Starmer government gets criticised for not getting enough done. Maybe if you don't push over the weekends, maybe if you don't treat it as a 24/7 job, and perhaps it's not possible to get enough done.
Possibly, Olivia. Maybe he just wants to put his feet up on a Saturday morning and enjoy Saturday Morning Live on GB News.
I reckon that's it. We'll be back. Our own little advert for our show.
Just a little warm-up.
There's a really interesting comment here as well from John, who says this is about the trans guidance. Kids don't understand at that age. It's their parents forcing their wishes on them. They may have wanted a girl and ended up with a boy. This is disastrous. Now, I think this is so interesting and very pertinent from John, because I'm a young mum, and so I get all of the algorithms, I get all the social media content from parents. And this idea of gender disappointment is growing massively. So lots of mothers who want to have girls having boys and feeling very disappointed about it. Are they then changing the gender of their children? A really alarming prospect.
Yeah, alarming is the word for that, for sure. Right, 9 minutes past 10, and another one bites the dust. That's because Sir Chris Wilmot, he's been forced out as Cabinet Secretary, becoming the shortest-serving head of the civil service in history after just 14 months in the job. I mean, Olivia, these would be people in the role for years, serving multiple PMs, really, shouldn't they?
Well, absolutely, and people who have the knowledge, the depth of knowledge that you need for a job like that. Anyway, Downing Street insists the decision was mutual, but it follows months of negative briefings and comes as Sir Keir Starmer reshuffles his top team after the Mandelson scandal.
Well, the ousted top civil servant has been handed a £260,000 payouts. So let's go speak to the former Cabinet Office Chief Economist, Jonathan Portes, who joins us this morning. Good morning, Jonathan. Let's just reflect on the stint that Chris Womald's been in office for, very short-serving. Does this point to you, as a former senior civil servant, to a bit of a crisis in the management of government at the very top at the moment?
Yes, it does. And I would say, as distinct from Keir Starmer's other problems with Morgan McSweeney and so on, which are very much of his own making, this is something which is not new to this government. The last 3 cabinet secretaries have had rather short and relatively unsuccessful tenures compared to what was the case when I started in the civil service, which is now coming up to almost 40 years ago, when it was expected that they would, as you say, stay for a long time and serve governments of governments of different parties. And that seems to have changed in the last 10 years. And I think most people would say that that is very unfortunate indeed for the civil service, but also for the country as a whole, where we have prided ourselves on having a sort of professional, long-serving and politically neutral civil service. And I note that actually I don't think the recent troubles have been so much about political neutrality, but about prime ministers simply wanting, simply coming in and saying, well, I don't, this person doesn't quite work for me or doesn't work for me and I need someone else and therefore I'm going to change them. And clearly that's what Keir Starmer did when the previous incumbent, Simon Case, left. He replaced him with Chris Wormald, and now he's clearly got buyer's remorse. And I think that's really not a very sensible way to behave if you want over the long term to have a civil service that serves the government objectively and professionally.
Is Keir Starmer essentially just trying to get rid of everyone who had anything to do with the Mandelson saga in the hope that in doing so he'll be able to save himself, basically offering Chris Wormald as a bit of a political sacrifice?
That's not how it appears to me. It doesn't seem that Chris had very much to do one way or another with the Mandelson episode, since he was only appointed just before Mandelson was. I think the real problem here is that, quite frankly, Chris Wormald is a very old-fashioned career civil servant. Keir Starmer appointed him and then has decided he wants something different. He wants someone who's radical and will shake things up. And frankly, that just suggests that he, despite the fact that I think pretty much everybody at the time said, look, if you want an old-style, old-fashioned, traditional civil servant, Chris Wormald is your man. Nonetheless, despite all that advice, Keir Starmer appointed him and has now realised that he did what he thinks is the wrong thing. And as Gus O'Donnell, the former head of the civil service, and perhaps my boss once said, that's a pretty shabby way to treat someone. He's essentially blaming Chris for his own mistake.
Well, Jonathan, is the problem not also that Keir Starmer was advised not to pick Chris Wormald, that other options were presented to him following a lengthy board, and the problem here is that Keir Starmer has picked the person who is most like Keir Starmer in Chris Wormald. And also, there was some reporting recently suggesting that Chris Wormald had told him that he was a supporter of Labour, and that could have swayed his selection as well. Has that played a role, do you think, in these big selections of very senior civil servants?
I think on your first point, I think you're broadly correct. As you say, Keir Starmer appointed someone who in some ways was quite like him, and then decided that's not what he wanted, and that was clearly a mistake. I don't know the truth of it. I'd be very surprised if Chris Wormald's political affiliations, whatever they are, had anything to do with it. Frankly, if you get to that level of the civil service, whatever your original political affiliations were, you've long since learned to bury them so deep that they cannot be that they can't be found when you're doing the job. And I'd be pretty surprised if that had anything to do with it.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan Portes, the former Cabinet Office chief economist, for joining us on this show. I mean, really, really interesting, is it? Is what this government needs more chop and churn? And also, of course, he's going to get a £260,000 payout at the expense of the taxpayer. Can that really be justified?
A good sacking if you can get it. Right, it's 10:15 and we have some breaking news to bring you now, because judges have said that Palestine Action's co-founder, Huda Amori, she's won a High Court challenge over the ban of the organisation as a prescribed terrorist organisation on 2 grounds.
Yes, the government now has the right to go to the Court of Appeal to appeal the ruling. We'll have more on this shortly.
Very significant breaking news, that. Right, we're going to be getting back to that very quickly, but first, it's your chance to get your summer sorted, a luxury £10,000 holiday for 2. We're also going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash if you're lucky enough to win this incredible prize worth £40,000. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our 2-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. So whether you're looking for hotel comfort or on a relaxing river cruise, you'll be able to find the perfect match from over 30 global destinations on offer. And because the holiday is handpicked with you in mind, you know it's going to be perfect. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Your summer can start here, so make sure you don't miss out.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck with that. Just moments ago, we brought you that breaking news that Palestine Action's co-founder had won a High Court challenge against the ban of the organisation as a terror group on 2 grounds. We're also hearing now that Palestine Action does remain banned as a terror group while further arguments are heard, and to give the government time to consider an appeal.
And more information on that as we get it throughout the show. But up next, children choosing their own gender at 4 years old is fine, but vaping with a child in the car is banned. It's a bit of a crazy mixed up world, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll be going through that and more with our panel guests, Emma Trimble and Jonathan Liz, who are all fired up and ready to join us here at the desk. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. Stay with us.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
First up, we've got Traitors. So probably now the biggest TV show in the country, and obviously a global hit as well. We've just been announced it's going to be a stage show coming sometime early next year, we think. And it's got huge prestige behind it. So Sam Mendes, who's major Hollywood director, Bond films, 1917, that incredible film, his company is behind it with All3 Media, which is the Dutch production company that originally created the Traitors concept. So a lot of backing behind it. We don't know which way it's going to swing yet, but the people that are, for example, director Robert Hastie, two of my favourite shows we were just talking about, Standing at the Sky's Edge, which is a very serious, dark show, and then Operation Mincemeat, which is an absolute lark silliness.
I have to say, my favourite show in the world, I've seen it 10 times.
Which one?
Mincemeat.
Oh, have you?
Yes, on Broadway and the West End.
Oh, wonderful.
Absolutely obsessed by it.
Yeah, it's incredible. So the talent behind all of this is really exciting. Whether we're going to have sort of jazz hands and key changes, I don't know. No cast yet. I would love to see Claudia actually breaking some moves, but I don't think we'll get anyone like that in it.
It could be a bit of a comedy, is what you're suggesting.
I think it's going to be veering towards the lighter side of it, highly entertaining. And they've promised, we keep getting twists every season. The one thing they have said is they will be following the format, but there will be surprises. So this one we're very much looking forward to. More news to come if you meet me up in the tower later.
Interesting. What else do you have for us?
So the next up we've got HMS Pinafore, which is glorious. And there's a lot of people that feel that Gilbert and Sullivan can be a little bit stuffy, perhaps a little bit old-fashioned.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 10:21 and this is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley.
And we're delighted to be joined in the studio. We've got the political commentator Jonathan Liss and also the journalist and commentator Emma Trimble with us this morning. Good morning to you both. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good to be here.
Very well, thank you. Very smart green jumper today, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Slightly muted from your usual gear.
It's military in deference to you, Charlie.
That is a level of respect I appreciate in the studio. About time someone showed that. Right, where are we going to start with then? Times front page?
Well, if it's Friday, it must be a story about trans kids. So here we go. So you will remember a few years ago that the Conservative government issued guidance for children who wanted to, for schools where children might want to change their pronouns. Really important to note, this is not about any kind of surgery for kids or even any kind of puberty blockers. It's a completely different issue. This was about guidance for kids who want to change their pronouns or want to go by a different name, maybe wear different clothes, and whether the school should allow that or inform the parents. And there was basically an absolute rule that said, no, they should not be allowed to do that. And that I said at the time, and I got a lot of flack for it, I said that it should be a child-led approach rather than something that was about the parents' needs. Obviously, parents should be consulted, but sometimes that might not be appropriate and all the rest of it. The new government has altered the rule, the guidance, which is to say the parents should be consulted, but that there should not be an absolute rule against it. And that in some circumstances, it would be in the child's best interest to go by different pronouns or whatever. It doesn't mean that they would have access to different changing rooms or PE lessons or anything like that. It's about getting rid of a one-size-fits-all and actually customise it, because we all know that children are different. And this is actually backed by Hilary Cass. You remember the Cass review, where a lot of people on the gender critical side were sort of talking about the Cass review. Cass endorses this particular guidance.
But I suppose the reason, Emma, that the Conservative government did introduce that blanket ban is because there is a lot of evidence that when children start changing their pronouns, they do often end up on the path that leads towards puberty blockers and a lifetime of surgery, potentially infertility, etc. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
and does this guidance address that?
Absolutely. And schools have been waiting for this guidance. And you're right that children over the age of 8 can't go into each other's changing rooms, each other's toilets and that kind of thing, which of course is good. But we're talking about social transition of children as young as 4 here. And as you say, once children get put on that pathway of socially transitioning, of people using their pronouns, remember, children have magical thinking. You can tell a child that they're a horse or a unicorn or Superman and they'll believe you. If you tell a child that you can whack them on the head with your magic fairy wand and turn them into another gender, they will think that that is true. And so it's very dangerous to put children on this pathway where statistically they're more likely to then medically transition at a later date, you're actually aggravating their gender confusion, rather than if you left it, as studies show, it's more likely to simply resolve itself over time. Children think they're all sorts of things. We shouldn't be affirming the fantasies that they have at such young ages. And also another aspect of this is that their pronouns would have to be used in the school, which of course is going to lead to some free speech concerns if other parents or children or classroom assistants are being compelled to use the pronouns of...
No, I don't think that anyone's going to be compelled to. I think that if there is guidance in place for a specific child, again, there is no one universal child. There are different childs with different needs. And
yeah, but none of them are born in the wrong order.
First of all, it's important to note that the 4-year-old the putative 4-year-old that you're talking about is going to be exceptionally rare according to this guidance.
But these rare cases need to be included to test them.
And there actually isn't guidance on that. So, like, it's still going to be up to the discretion of the school to decide whether or not this is a rare case.
I would trust schools and medical professionals who know an individual child, know what's... And obviously the child's parents as well are involved in this decision. It's not going against their wishes. And the child themselves, children still have agency. They still might, if they want to do something, we have to at least ask them why they want to do something. It's not sort of teachers encouraging them to do this. It's not some, sort of trans agenda that we always hear about.
They have agency, but they're children and they don't know what's best.
Right, but that is why it's about the professionals to assess each child and each child's needs on individual merits, rather than having a blanket rule, which may not work for some kids. That's why Hilary Cass, who I disagree with a lot in her report, but this is a very sensible piece of guidance that says that some children, this will be appropriate. And just as you say that some children, they have all kinds of thinking, and they also grow out of it. I used to go to nursery school wearing hairbands. I don't wear them anymore. Alice bands. I wanted to be a girl when I was 3 years old.
You grew out of it, but maybe
I grew out of it.
And maybe no one affirmed that you were the opposite gender.
That's neither here nor there.
I think it is, actually.
Some people... Well, actually, that's not true. That's not true, actually. People were very, very welcoming, even for the age.
If you're a gender-confused child and every single adult around you is affirming your confusion, the chances of you being able to naturally grow out of that phase is very statistically unlikely. So actually what this is doing, I think, is abusing children.
I think that's a very, very strong and unnecessary...
It is, and I think it's
true. I think that's a really terrible piece of language, because it's not abusing children to allow them to experiment, to play with them...
To entrench them in their confusion and to prolong their suffering, I think
it's not suffering. You can't say that it's suffering. It might not... You are not trans. I'm not trans either. There are some people who might be trans or who might become trans, for whom their new identity is the one in which they feel most comfortable. We can't just tell them they're wrong just because we happen to feel that about ourselves.
Another story I want to get your perspective on, that breaking news we've just had about Palestine Action, with the co-founder successfully appealing on its prescription. However, it remains banned, Emma, while the process is still ongoing as the government lodges an appeal. What do you make of this situation? Do you think the government made the right move to prescribe the organisation? Because there was a lot of reporting at the time that actually security services didn't think it was a good idea.
I think that they were right. I think that the Palestine Action are a group that, they're not terroristic as such, but they have been. But they have been breaking the law and taking, like, for example, though. I mean, I know that this is a case that recently the charges were dropped against them, although they were found not guilty. But, there have been cases where people from Palestine Action, I want to be very careful with what I'm saying here, people from Palestine Action have done certain things that many people would look at and say, this is breaking the law.
But no one would say it was terrorism. No one sensible would say it was terrorism. If you burgle a property, it doesn't make you a terrorist. If I steal something from a shop, it doesn't make me a terrorist.
I suppose, Jonathan, some of the cases that have been tried, where there's no longer any legal debate ongoing, in targeting military production. So factories. Right. Okay. I mean, I know some of them may be Israeli, but they support the British Armed Forces, or other factories around the country that support our security services. I think destroying sabotaging the state's security. I mean, that is
it's not terrorism by any sense that word has been understood for decades.
Just putting
forward, if you are targeting
military hardware.
If you're targeting then the sort of military hardware or infrastructure, then you might be guilty of criminal damage or trespassing or a range of other crimes that exist and have existed for a long time. It's not terrorism.
Do you think it was a panic decision? Where would you
draw the line?
Well, if you are targeting civilians, if you have, if you are sort of blowing things up in streets, if you are, sort of destroying things where you know there are people likely to be. But
terrorism has been historically understood as including targeting things like infrastructure. If you're targeting military hardware, I think many people in the British public
such as factories, for
exactly.
example.
People will look at that and say that is terrorism.
Breaking into somewhere and smashing a few things up is not the same as blowing something up where there are civilians. I'm sorry, it's just not the same.
No, it's not the same, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't warrant a prescription.
The fundamental point about this prescription is it's not just banning an organisation, it's banning anyone who even supports that organisation and putting them in jail. It's complete overreach, and anyone who claims to care about free speech should have been completely horrified about this prescription.
And do you think that, this is my personal view, is a mistake of that prescription is that it actually attracted more support for the group? It made it...
Absolutely.
It's ruined a lot of people's lives because, of course, they've now gone out and, potentially broken the law by saying they support it.
Teachers, retired doctors...
But it's attracted more people to the organisation because of perhaps even the mystique of it becoming a terrorist group. There's some people, they think in this way. It's a shame that they want to go and attach themselves to a group after it becomes more dangerous to do so, as it were. But in a sense, it's sort of given it more prominence.
Yeah, it becomes more subversive. It becomes something that's more attractive for people. I understand that, and I totally respect your point. I think it's a very fair point. But I do think, you made the point about free speech. Nobody's stopping people from being able to go out and protest and to express their opinion.
That's literally what's happening.
But if a group, an organisation, organises things like criminal damage, attacks on infrastructure, that kind of thing, then I think the government are within their rights to prescribe
Emma, this is exactly what the prescription involved. Someone holding up a magazine cover saying, "I support Palestine Action," was arrested by the police. I don't understand how anyone who claims to support free speech... But prescription means that you can't support the group either. That's what it means.
Shabana Mahmood is going to challenge this. There will be an appeal from the government, so we'll have to see where it lands. I do think that's an interesting point, though, that Jonathan's making, Emma. The free speech angle, surely as a really vociferous proponent of free speech, you do see that there is an alarming angle to this.
Yeah, but I think that we also have, serious concerns about security and so on. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be able to support Palestine, that people shouldn't be able to protest, but it's the same thing as if someone, and I'm not putting Palestine Action on the same footing as something, an organisation like ISIS. But it's not dissimilar from, somebody going out with a sign and saying, "I support ISIS." That would also be criminal because...
Aren't you just making the point that I'm making, the point that the government put them on the same position as ISIS?
They are on the same footing.
So if you say, "I support Palestine Action," it's the same as you saying, "I support ISIS."
Legally, it is exactly the same.
By the way, I don't think that you should be jailed for saying that you support anyone. It may be deeply distasteful. I don't think it should be a crime.
There we go. First Amendment, free speech, American warrior in the corner, Jonathan Liz.
Yeah. I'm consistent, Charlie. I've always been consistent. I think that you can be horrible as a right-wing or a left-wing. I don't think it should be illegal to be horrible.
Well, it's good that you're horrible as a left-winger then, isn't it, Jonathan? That's what we are. All right, Emma, Jonathan, thanks for your time. Let's cross over now and get a quick 60-second news update with Sophia Wensler.
Good morning. Your headlines at 10:32. World leaders are arriving for talks at the Munich Security Conference today, and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned Europe of a new era in geopolitics ahead of his speech. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Prime Minister has faced a Whitehall revolt over his decision to sack Britain's most senior civil servant. The Times is reporting that government officials refused to sign off on the move because it would cost the taxpayer £250,000 that could not be justified. Banning Palestine Action under anti-terror legislation is unlawful, according to the High Court. The government, meanwhile, intends to fight against this judgment in the Court of Appeal. To Met Office, yellow weather warnings are in force for snow and ice across Scotland and northern England as Arctic air makes a chilly return. Those are your headlines now. I'll have more news for you at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Still ahead, Italy are using a naval blockade to stop small boat crossings. Why can't Britain just do the same? We'll be asking that and much more. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, good morning to you and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Finally, a change in the weather is on the way. Initially today, it's going to feel cold as a different air mass arrives from the north, and as that colder air mixes with milder but wetter weather further south, in between we will see some snow. We're already seeing snow across the North York Moors, parts of the Pennines, even at some lower levels, chance of snow. But over the hills, 2 to 5 centimetres by lunchtime. 10 centimetres over the peaks. Now, it's going to feel cold across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but much brighter skies finally arrive here. Having seen 3 weeks without the sun in Aberdeen, finally a bright day with plenty of sunny spells. But that cold feel and further sleet or snow showers coming into the north of Scotland, predominantly places exposed to the north wind. But southeast Scotland also seeing some sleety showers coming through. Northern Ireland, plenty of clear skies as we end the day and go into the evening. A marked contrast compared with the weather throughout much of the year so far. But for much of England and Wales, we've still got the cloud, we've still got the showery rain. However, as the colder air in the north mixes in with those outbreaks of rain, could be some sleet or snow at lower levels through the Midlands, parts of Wales, and eventually southern England as the whole system moves through. Any snow, though, very temporary, doesn't last, moves through, and then widely clear skies to begin the weekend. A widespread frost, first one of those we've seen for some time. But plenty of sunshine first thing Saturday, and despite the crisp start with light winds and those bright blue skies, a much more positive spell of weather, albeit just for a few hours this Valentine's Day. A few showers around some eastern and western and northern coasts. The cloud builds in the west later ahead of the next band of rain, but throughout much of Saturday afternoon, sunny skies.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the A92 northbound between Bankhead and Preston Roundabout, traffic is restricted after a vehicle breakdown. The A55 over Britannia Bridge faces problems due to high winds. In Cumbria, the A590 westbound has lane closures after a collision between the M6 and the A591, with normal conditions expected between 1:45 and 1 this afternoon. Northamptonshire's M1 southbound is slow between junction 13 and 12 after a crash, with 50-minute delays. And on the trains, the Elizabeth Line and Great Western Railway both have major disruption. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 10:37 and there's a bit of breaking news because Palestine Action, that ban under the Terrorism Act, has been ruled unlawful by the High Court.
Yes, the government will appeal against the High Court's decision that the ban on Palestine Action is unlawful, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has said.
Well, let's get more on this with the former Attorney General, Sir Michael Ellis. Sir Michael, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Significant breaking news on that decision coming out of the High Court. The government say they're going to challenge it. Do you think there's a good chance that they are going to have this Terrorism Act ban overturned?
Well, there's a good chance, I think. I mean, first of all, Charlie, I'd say this is an extraordinary ruling. We haven't yet seen the judgment, and we'll need to assess what the High Court has actually said as their rationale for this decision. But since the Terrorism Act was passed in the year 2000, this is the first time since that act was passed in a quarter of a century that a sitting Home Secretary has been overruled by the judiciary in his or her ruling that a group should be proscribed. So this is the first time that we've had judicial interference in this decision. And it is an extraordinary decision, quite frankly, of this court, because not only is it establishing a whole new precedent that interferes with the power of the executive to decide what is and is not suitable for proscription, for banning, but it is now creating a situation. I think Shabana Mahmood will be furious with this. We do already have safeguards in place, Charlie and Olivia, because the Home Office had a special action group that used to assess and has been assessing whether a group should be proscribed or not. That has been a safeguard to prevent, if you like, any suggestion that the Home Secretary acting alone is making a proscription. But frankly, we're getting to a situation now where the executive, the government of this country, are unable to scratch its nose without judicial interference. So this is a real departure from the normal understandings that have been the case for the past 25 years. So I'm not surprised that the Home Secretary has already decided that she's going to appeal this. Next step is the Court of Appeal.
How do you think Keir Starmer is feeling about this? Because Keir Starmer is a man who has experience, working in the courts. He was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. We all imagine that he quite likes the idea of a Britain run by lawyers. But of course, this goes against what his own former Home Secretary put down. So he must be feeling quite conflicted now.
I suspect he is quite conflicted. Look, I mean, this lexocracy, as I've called it, this rule by lawyers, is really beginning to cause a disconnect between what I think the British people expect from the government of their country and what the judiciary is providing. Now, we all acknowledge, of course, those of us that have been in the legal system for many years, that the judiciary always has a part to play. But the country has to be run by politicians and not by judges. Politicians have to be able to make decisions, and sometimes those decisions may be right and sometimes they may be wrong, hopefully more often right than wrong. But to have a judge constantly second-guessing every decision that is made is what is defined by judicial overreach, judicial activism. Now, I want to say we haven't yet seen the full judgment. We need to understand what the rationale of the court is here. But talking generally for a moment, this is a departure from standard practice. It is the first time this has happened, the first time that a Home Secretary of any party political colour has had his or her decision overturned in prescribing an organisation. So it is something that I think Shabana Mahmood and Keir Starmer will be very concerned and frankly annoyed about. Another option, Olivia and Charlie, that the government may wish to consider when it's exhausted the legal avenues is emergency legislation. And if you have an act of parliament that specifically goes through its processes and specifically rules on a subject, then the courts should not be able to interfere with that. So that's something that could happen after the appeals process has been exhausted.
Yeah, so, Michael, I imagine one of the government's arguments in reaction to this is to basically refer back to our constitution, that this was a parliamentary vote, that the courts should not overrule parliamentary decisions, shouldn't overrule legislation in this manner. I've also got some reaction I can bring you from the Henry Jackson Society, saying it's a serious setback for the Home Office, saying that criminal damage and intimidation should be prosecuted robustly under existing law, and that counter-terror legislation cannot be used as a shortcut. I think that cuts to a lot of the criticism that's been made of this prescription, that perhaps it was a rushed and panicked decision that perhaps didn't meet that threshold set internally by the Home Office.
Well, it's interesting that the Henry Jackson Society should take that approach. Look, I think there are two aspects to this, Charlie, as you rightly identify. And the first is that whatever way you look at it, this is the first time that a court has interfered in a Home Secretary's decision in this way. Now, whether that's justified or not will depend on, no doubt, what the ruling, the details of the ruling are, what we call the ratio of the ruling is, the ratio decidendi, which basically means the judge's reasoning for why they've done what they've done. Now, if they have taken the approach that, quite frankly, the government was wrong because it should have used other powers, like criminal damage and things like that, Public Order Act offences, and they should have taken that approach, then that will be something the government will need to look at and the police will need to look at. But whatever way you look at it, this is an extraordinary ruling and it will have lasting consequences. What it looks like the court have ordered, however, is that the ban stays in place until such time as the government can have an appeal heard. and that'll be before 3 judges at least at the Court of Appeal in London. And it may well be that the Lady Chief Justice will decide to sit and hear that case. We don't know. But this is clearly having constitutional significance. I think there's 2 aspects of looking at this. There's the criminal justice aspect and there's the constitutional aspect. Because as you rightly identified, Charlie, we've got a parliamentary sovereignty system. Parliament is supreme. The courts are not supreme in this country. In America, the Supreme Court can strike down legislation that has passed through Congress if the Supreme Court feels that it's against their written constitution. In our system, that can't happen. Parliament can pass an act of Parliament that says the moon is made out of cheese, and the courts are not supposed to be able to strike that down. That's called parliamentary sovereignty.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and giving us that really, really interesting insight. That's Sir Michael Ellis, the former Attorney General, and hopefully we'll have you back when Shabana Mahmood takes this to the High Court of Appeal.
Right, moving on, we're going to be going now to the Munich Security Conference later in the programme. We're eagerly awaiting, of course, the arrival of Sir Keir Starmer. He stumbled when he arrived at the G20 summit in South Africa last year. He'll be hoping for a much smoother entry to this gathering of world leaders. A big security setback for his government in the courts as he arrives at the Munich Security Conference.
But if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Having seen so much stormy weather across parts of Western Europe recently, finally a change is on the way. It's still windy this weekend in Spain, Portugal and across much of Italy. Spells of rain moving in here, reaching eventually parts of Greece and Croatia. But it is looking drier and brighter for much of Spain and Portugal despite that strong wind. And that steady improvement continues into next week. Still breezy with showers around, but not as stormy as it has been.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
Oh, no, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. And the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has been handed new powers to block migrant boats using Italy's navy.
Now, the Italian cabinet has approved a bill authorising naval blockades during periods of what it calls exceptional pressure at the country's borders.
Yes, the move marks a further tightening of Italy's crackdown on illegal migrant arrivals. So should Britain do the same to tackle the small boats crisis in the Channel? Well, joining us now is former NATO commander Rear Admiral Chris Parry. I mean, I think to lots of our viewers, this sounds like a sensible idea to tackle the problem of small boats coming to British shores. Could it possibly work here in the UK?
Yes, of course it could work, and the Navy is equipped to do it. All it takes is the political will to implement it.
And Chris, why then do you think there has been such a significant split? Because we're seeing now more EU rules on deporting asylum seekers to safe third countries. Italy is improving its relations with Albania on that move. It seems that as Britain cuts Rwanda and goes in one direction, the rest of Europe is in a sense waking up and going the other way.
Charlie, for the last 10 years, I've been putting forward a strategy for dealing with the situation in the Channel. On each occasion, it's been stalled by the Home Office, and I'm afraid people say it can't be done. There's all sorts of technical reasons why you can't do it. It's just excuses. We can deal with this problem just as we can deal with any other problem in the Channel. It just needs a good strategy, it needs good leadership, and it needs the political will to be able to do it. All those are lacking at the moment.
You say it's just excuses, but in Italy, has this Albania plan actually worked? Because it's controversial over there. Some people say it's actually not very efficient, it's not very cost-effective, the same arguments that were used about Rwanda. I know that under Meloni, the number of small boat migrants has come down, but critics say that's because of a range of other factors, including things like the weather, not actually the policies that she's implementing. Is she really that successful over in Italy, and would a model like hers genuinely work here?
No, it wouldn't. And Olivia, you put your finger on it. You've just mentioned one aspect of what should constitute a strategy. The fact of life is people are trying to pin the tail on the donkey, not recognising it's actually a rhinoceros. And unless you have a strategy that deals with every aspect of what you're trying to achieve, every time you pinprick at it, you're going to see failure. I mean, the first thing we should do, for example, in the Channel is declare a humanitarian crisis. Then that enables you to get round all sorts of protocols and rules in relation to what you're trying to do. That hasn't been tried yet. If this were happening on land, the United Nations would be all over it. It would be a humanitarian crisis. But because it's at sea, nobody has the imagination or indeed the intellect to be able to deal with it.
Of course, Chris, the UN Convention of the Law at Sea says that anyone who's lost or who is in crisis in the sea has to be rescued, and the French don't let us return anyone to their shores. So, as you say, there's no cohesive and widespread strategy to make this work, whereas perhaps what Italy's got is better arrangements with Libya for these pushbacks in some cases, but also those third country alternatives. We've got neither of those options at the moment, so we are in a much weaker position.
Yeah, again, you mentioned the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. I don't want to mention it on here because it's part of a programme that I'm trying to develop. But we employ lawyers with our government to find ways in which we can use the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea to our advantage, not to stop us doing something. The last thing I want to hear from a lawyer, whether it's a government or one I'm employing personally, is the word but. I want him, because I'm paying him or her, to tell me how I can do things. again, it's all about excuses. We can stop this in the channel tomorrow if we choose to, and if we implement a coherent strategy. It's as simple as that. You know, it involves the French, of course it does, but also it means putting some pressure on the French in other ways, rather than just trying to incentivize them by paying them virtually to do nothing.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. That was Rear Admiral Chris Parry.
Right, coming up on the programme, we're going to find out why the Scottish Tories have branded the city of Glasgow as a migrant magnet. All of that coming up here on Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show, only on GB News. Time for your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Finally, a change in the weather is on the way. Initially today, it's going to feel cold as a different air mass arrives from the north, and as that cold air mixes with milder but wetter weather further south, in between we will see some snow. We're already seeing snow across the North York Moors, parts of the Pennines, even at some lower levels, chance of snow. But over the hills, 2 to 5 centimetres by lunchtime. 10 centimetres over the peaks. Now, it's going to feel cold across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but much brighter skies finally arrive here. Having seen 3 weeks without the sun in Aberdeen, finally a bright day with plenty of sunny spells. But that cold feel and further sleet or snow showers coming into the north of Scotland, predominantly places exposed to the north wind, but southeast Scotland also seeing some sleety showers coming through. Northern Ireland, plenty of clear skies as we end the day and go into the evening, a marked contrast compared with the weather throughout much of the year so far. But for much of England and Wales, we've still got the cloud, we've still got the showery rain. However, as the colder air in the north mixes in with those outbreaks of rain, could be some sleet or snow at lower levels through the Midlands, parts of Wales, and eventually southern England as the whole system moves through. Any snow, though, very temporary, doesn't last, moves through, and then widely clear skies to begin the weekend. A widespread frost, first one of those we've seen for some time. But plenty of sunshine first thing Saturday, and despite the crisp start with light winds and those bright blue skies, a much more positive spell of weather, albeit just for a few hours this Valentine's Day. A few showers around some eastern and western and northern coasts. The cloud builds in the west later ahead of the next band of rain, but throughout much of Saturday afternoon, sunny skies.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Hey, it's 11 a.m. on Friday, the 13th of February. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Olivia Rutley.
And breaking news, Palestine Action wins a High Court challenge over the group's ban as a terrorist organisation, a ruling the government has already said it's going to appeal.
There's been another departure in number 10 Downing Street because Sir Chris Wormald has been forced out as the Cabinet Secretary. But don't feel too sorry for him. He's had a payout of more than £260,000.
And jet set Starmer is at it again. Today, the Prime Minister joins world leaders at the Munich Security Conference, where they hope to achieve peace through dialogue.
Look at that man having a nice pipe. That's wonderful. Great live shot. And back here in Britain, confusing our kids? That's the question, because the government guidance has now said that 4-year-olds will be able to change their gender at school, but they must use toilets in line with their biological sex.
And the homelessness crisis. Scottish Conservatives claim homeless applications in Glasgow from people from outside Scotland have surged by more than 3,500%.
Yes, here in Glasgow, we know this is already the UK's asylum capital, but this paper, this housing paper from the Scottish Conservatives, suggests that a law change back in 2022 have seen the numbers coming to Scotland, to Glasgow, from outside of Scotland soar from 35 a year all the way up to almost 3,000.
We will drill, baby, drill.
Well, that's from Trump to Tony, because the Tony Blair Institute has called on Labour to reverse their ban on North Sea oil and gas licences. Will the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, respond to that drill, baby, drill demand?
And unlucky for some, it's Friday the 13th, just before Valentine's weekend. Let's hope nothing unfortunate happens to us in the studio.
Oh, you never know what's going to happen at this place. I'm glad it happened on Friday the 13th. It's, you know, the luck of the draw.
I wasn't so terrified second time round. First time my heart was hammering. I was terrified.
I know. Well, our producer James is keeping us on the edge of our toes, that's for sure. Well, loads coming up on this last hour of Britain's Newsroom. Very keen for your involvement. What do you think of that man smoking a pipe at the Munich Security Conference? I'm so glad that the live camera captured him. We're all waiting for Sir Keir Starmer and other world leaders to appear. But first, the entertainment being delivered by that pipe-smoking hero. I hope he's a good man, and I'm not just doing a lovely shout-out to someone who's, I don't know, a disaster. Yeah.
I mean, it does make the whole thing look a little bit like a talking shop, which is always
the
complaint. Well, exactly. We'll have lots more on that and that really interesting Glasgow homelessness story. But first, here's the news with Sophia Wensler.
Charlie, Olivia, thank you and good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your top stories. Palestine Action has won a High Court challenge against the Home Office's decision to ban it as a terror group. The prescription, which began last summer, made being a member of the group or supporting it a criminal offence punishable by up to 14 years in prison. However, it will remain outlawed for now to allow further arguments, and the Home Secretary has said the government will appeal. World leaders are arriving for talks at the Munich Security Conference today. Officials will discuss the top issues facing the world in 2026, including the transatlantic alliance and Europe's security architecture. As he made his way to Germany, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned Europe of a new era in geopolitics ahead of a major speech. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Prime Minister has faced a Whitehall revolt over his decision to sack Britain's most senior civil servant. The Times is reporting that the government officials refused to sign off on the move because it would cost the taxpayer £250,000 that could not be justified. Sir Keir Starmer overrode their concerns and agreed to the payout and sacked Sir Chris Wormold. Shadow Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho called out the Prime Minister's lack of control.
It's chaos. I mean, that's what it looks like. He is going through personnel like he's running through water. And at the moment, he sacked his director of comms. He's not got a cabinet secretary. And it's not clear who is running the country.
In other news now, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor reportedly leaked a confidential Treasury briefing to a banker friend while he was trade envoy. That's according to the Telegraph newspaper. It's understood that in 2010, the former prince passed on a memo about the Icelandic financial crisis to Jonathan Rowland, the former chief executive of Bank Haviland, a bank that had been bought assets from a failed Icelandic lender a year earlier. The bank was connected to a major investigation by Icelandic authorities at the time. Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor, who was the then UK's trade envoy, suggested the information might be useful to his friend. Bangladesh's Nationalist Party have claimed victory in the first election since the Gen Z uprising. The BNP, headed by Tariq Rahman, won a two-thirds majority months after he returned from 17 years in exile in London. The vote was Bangladesh's first national election since the July uprising of 2024 and was widely seen as a referendum against ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. He has made many big promises, including to empower women who form half of the population of the country. Now, US President Donald Trump has reversed a key Obama-era scientific ruling that underpins all federal actions on curbing planet-warming gases. The move has been criticised by environmental groups, but the White House has called the reversal the largest deregulation in American history, saying it would make cars cheaper and bring down costs for automakers. Now, the UK is sending more than £500 million in new air defence missiles and systems to Ukraine as Russia's attacks continue. For the first time, £150 million of that package will fund equipment bought directly from the United States as part of a NATO initiative. And a 4-day health alert for cold weather has begun in England amid an Arctic blast of cold air, as the Met Office warned of snow and ice in some areas. The alert covers central and northern areas and runs until 8 a.m. on Monday. Today is set to feel much colder for the UK, with temperatures plummeting overnight, bringing the first widespread frost of February. Those are your latest GB News headlines. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3622 and €1.1486. The price of gold is £3,651 and 85 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 10,041 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Hello and welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley.
Now, loads of you have been getting in touch on gbnews.com/your say, particularly on that debate we were just having on the issue of whether or not Britain could copy Italy in its new naval blockade strategy. What have you been saying on that? Molly says the Royal Marines and our Navy take people from boats and take them to shore all over the world. We only need to do the same for a month and the boats will stop. Now, that would be something of a deterrent, wouldn't it, Olivia?
Alison says our government won't do what Italy is doing. Even if they tried, the courts would overturn it. Which brings us back to that conversation that we were having, if you were watching with Michael Ellis a little bit earlier. Is this country now run by the politicians who were elected to run it, or is it run by the judiciary?
And it's interesting to note, Olivia, that amid this discussion about what the Italian reaction might be to this new plan being put forward by Giorgia Meloni, a lot of reports coming out of Rome that the ECHR challenge is going to come. So they're not over the line yet. This strategy could still be challenged.
No, absolutely. Back to that breaking news now. Palestine Action ban under terrorism is ruled unlawful by the High Court.
Now, the government will appeal against the High Court's decision that the ban on Palestine Action is unlawful, and that's been said by the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. Well, let's get more on this now with the Executive Director at the Henry Jackson Society, Alan Mendoza. Good morning, Alan. Thank you for joining us. This is a significant ruling from the High Court, and we're seeing protesters outside that area this morning not being arrested for holding up those signs saying "I support Palestine Action," when of course many of them have been arrested for that previously. The ban is still in place, but it seems that the police are holding off at the moment.
Well, this is the mess that the judiciary have placed us in. This prescription was passed by Parliament. MPs elected to Parliament voted for this. Parliament in this country is sovereign. What is the High Court doing, making a judgment on something that Parliament has already voted on? This is an absolute outrage. Another example of judicial activism running rampant in this country and undermining what politicians are doing.
But, Alan, what do you make of the, setting that aside for a moment, what do you make of the government's decision to prescribe Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation in the first place? Are there free speech concerns about that?
I'm not setting it aside because it's actually fundamental to this issue. This was something that was debated and discussed in Parliament. MPs voted by an overwhelming majority to do it. So, no, I don't have any concerns about this because MPs made their decision. They looked at the evidence, they looked at what was there, and they decided that this was a terrorist organisation. For it to now be overturned by a court is a deeply worrying situation. We've seen this before in other cases like Brexit. It is a disaster when the people's, sort of elected representatives are then overturned by unelected judges.
I know this is your perspective, Alan, but Emma Schubart, the research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, is appearing to take a slightly different view to you, saying that if prescription cannot withstand legal scrutiny, it raises real questions about judgment and the process that Parliament, of course, and government took. Emma also says that counter-terror legislation cannot be used as a shortcut. This challenge that's been taken forward, I take your perspective on parliamentary sovereignty, of course, but the challenge is about whether this group met that threshold, whether the state had gone too far.
But again, Parliament decided it had met that threshold. This is the whole point to it. So, my colleague is very entitled to have her view on the subject as well. But I come from it from a slightly different perspective, which is those arguments should have been made at the time that Parliament was prescribing or making that decision. For that to have then been made latterly in a court seems to me a very retrograde step. It once again goes back to this point. Who runs Britain? Is it politicians or is it judges? Right now, the answer seems to be judges.
Well, Shabana Mahmood is clearly furious about this. She's taking it over to the Court of Appeal. If she loses in the Court of Appeal, what recourse does the government then have? Or does it just have to bow to the judgment of these judges?
Well, at that point, the government's in big trouble, obviously. The question, therefore, is what can she do at that point to change the situation? I'm sure there would still be a parliamentary majority in favour of doing something about Palestine Action. What that might be would be the government's cause at this point in time. But she's right to be furious. She's right to be furious that judges have overturned a decision by Parliament. She's absolutely right about that.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. And after this, I'll actually be at the High Court reporting from there to see what the situation is on the ground over there, because this is a developing story and it will go to the Court of Appeal, we now know.
Thank you very much, Alan. Right, it's 12 minutes past 11. And moving on now, the government has announced 13,000 new apprenticeship placements to help young people train for jobs as plumbers, engineers and bricklayers.
And as well as this, Labour have launched a pilot clearance-style system to provide a clear path to apprenticeships.
Well, one young man who can tell us all about the benefits of apprenticeships is the entrepreneur Adam Lamali, who joins us in the studio now. Adam, thanks so much for coming in. I'm really grateful for your time. What do you make about this new move that's coming on? And tell us a bit about your story as well with apprenticeships.
So with my story in apprenticeships, I started off as an apprentice. I was self-employed while being an apprentice at the same time. And it was a springboard for me to have a lot of ownership with the work that I do from the age of 18, just working very hard, long hours, to then today I now run 2 companies and I'm employed at the same time, both of which have been quite successful. And with the new apprenticeships that come into play, I think it's a very valuable move. Apprenticeships for me has been something that's allowed me to work very early on. It was my first level of employment, but it's also allowed me to run very successful businesses by instilling a lot of hard and long work very early on to now being, I would say, in a very fortunate position.
I have to say, Adam, I'm very, very jealous of you. I'm one of those people who was on the Plan 2 student loan system, so the amount I'm paying back in interest on my student loan is astonishing. You don't have a student loan at all. From your perspective, to be honest, I think from my perspective, university for lots of people is becoming a bit of a waste of money. What do you make of that idea?
University being a waste of money, I believe that university comes with a lot of value. I've met university students that have become very successful. I do see university and the loans and the interest on those loans being quite a lot, essentially, and a lot of people not being able to feel as though they can only be able to pay off their student loan. For myself, it's been a situation where I've been able to have a lot of spare income, where I've been able to invest and save. And with university students, having all of those costs associated with going to university may not be that helpful when looking longer term, when looking to actually save and invest, having lesser of an income in comparison to somebody that was on an apprenticeship.
Simon, when you were at school, because a lot of people, they just sort of sleepwalk into that university path, don't they? They think it's the done thing. After Tony Blair's government massively raising the number of people going to university, it's just become the normal thing. How did you break from that path? What was the option given to you? How were you inspired to take the apprenticeship route instead?
Yeah, so with taking the apprenticeship route, I was very curious. I was curious about what other people were doing in terms of careers and businesses, and I was able to find an apprenticeship that served me in terms of learning a lot about businesses. I felt like within my apprenticeship, there wasn't a day where I wasn't looking at a set of financial statements, learning about a new company. And that, for me, was very inspiring to then take that leap to now start my own companies and to also invest in other companies that I have a strong interest in.
What would you say to employers who are reluctant to take apprentices on? Because there are some employers who say that it's just not worth it for them. You know, you have to, not only is the apprentice not valuable for the first year, perhaps, but also someone has to be training them up all the time. And so that person becomes of less value to the company. But obviously, you're a real success story. So what would you say to any business that isn't hiring apprentices but could be?
Yeah, I would say with hiring apprentices, there is always that return on investment with apprentices. They do work hard. There is a lot that has to be taken on from an apprentice's perspective in terms of learning and developing your skills. But when you have somebody that's joined your business very early on, there is that sense of loyalty as well. And then it also inspires more people to join your business, seeing somebody very early on being able to join and work their way up. And then hopefully learn a lot of new skills. It should then hopefully bring more traction from other people and then allow for more talent to join your business.
So Adam, you welcome this plan being announced by the government, this new approach to apprenticeships, adding lots more training. Is there more that you think government could be doing to opening up those paths to more young people?
Potentially, yes. I've seen recent cuts and announcements of like the level 7 apprenticeship. I guess that's more for older generations and older people. But I think the apprenticeships are quite tough to get into and quite challenging. So maybe apprenticeships that are then open to more people with like lesser of a barrier to entry would then help for more students, more people to then be able to join an apprenticeship.
Were you told about apprenticeship schemes while you were at school? I think maybe you were a little younger than me, and maybe when you were at school this was more of a thing. When I was at school, I'd never really heard of an apprenticeship. I hadn't been given that option at all, I think.
So I went on my own journey when it came to apprenticeships. I was definitely more shoehorned into going down to the university, right? I did apply to university. And with my first set of apprenticeships, the interview stages were quite hard. I was in interview rooms with graduates and assessment centres with graduates, and it was quite challenging. However, I went down my own route and actually joined not a September intake, but a January intake, so slightly later than the norm. But it was my own journey into finding apprenticeships. I think that they are more common at today's day and age, but back in the day, not so much.
Well, thank you very much, Adam, for joining us there. I wish I'd had your get up and go when I was 18 years old to do an apprenticeship.
You wouldn't be working alongside me if you'd already had an apprenticeship. Our paths could have not crossed.
Our paths could have crossed. I also met my husband at university, so there's that too. But more importantly, Charlie.
Right, 17 minutes past 11, and it's your chance to get summer sorted with a luxury £10,000 holiday for two. We're also going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash. So that's a £40,000 package, and Hayley Sparks is going to tell you how you can be in it to win it.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for two people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. So whether you're looking for hotel comfort or on a relaxing river cruise, you'll be able to find the perfect match from over 30 global destinations on offer. And because the holiday is handpicked with you in mind, you know it's going to be perfect. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Your summer can start here, so make sure you don't miss out.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, good luck with that. But up next, you really won't want to miss this. Find out why one theatre in Lincolnshire has imposed a bacon butty ban.
Yes, we'll be going through that and more of the other top stories crossing the country today with our two Peppa Pig enthusiasts. That's Emma Trimble and, of course, the one and only Daddy Pig, Jonathan Liss. Yes, I knew that would get him. You're watching Britain's Newsroom only on GB News. Stay with us just after the break.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 11:23. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Olivia. If you're wondering why Charlie is eating this bacon sandwich, well, you're about to find out, I think, because we're joined now on the paper review with political commentator Jonathan Litt and journalist and commentator Emma Trimble in the studio. Emma, I'm going to start with you. So, is this story... I'm giving Charlie a chance, if you're wondering why I'm talking so much, to finish his mouthful. Chewing away there.
Someone's got to support Ed Miliband in this trying time. Eating a bacon sandwich at work.
Chew bacon at the same time.
Putting him to shame.
Thank you. I think an elegant bacon sandwich consumer, don't you think?
Showing him
I'd love the bacon sandwich, by the way, but one of us has to keep a clear mouth.
Do a Miliband impression.
Yeah, go on.
Do it as badly as possible.
Hell yes, I'm tough enough.
Wasn't it Tussin' Us?
Tough enough was the one, wasn't it? Oh, no, poor boy, I shouldn't be doing that. Right, what's going on? What actually is this story, Emma? I'm eating while speaking.
This is a Peppa Pig live show, and they're not going to be serving any pork products because it would be a little
on the nose,
insensitive, on the nose, on the snout. I almost knew immediately what the story was going to be as soon as one of the producers said there's a Peppa Pig story. I like this, and it's going to go only one of two possible ways. Yeah, fair enough. But I don't know. I mean, is it so bad to serve pig in Peppa Pig?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're having a whole show for kids, where you're sort of celebrating a family of pigs and then you're serving their dead relatives in the cafe, a lot of children might be a little bit distressed by that.
It is important that children do know where their food comes from, I guess, so maybe it could be a little bit upsetting to have sausage rolls.
I suppose it is important they know. I'm one of those. I'm a huge meat eater, but I really don't like thinking about it. I remember tasting our wedding food, and we had lamb, and it was delicious. And then we went through a field, and there were all these lambs, and my husband said, "Oh, we'll be eating those." Oh, I couldn't bear it. Just awful. I'd rather not think about it.
Do you think it's possible to be an animal lover and also still really like eating?
Yeah, you just have to carve it out in your mind, don't you? Compartmentalise.
Good choice of words.
I'm not going to name the person, because I don't want to help identify them, but I recently visited someone who has chickens, and they feed their chickens with chicken.
No, that's you're not meant to do that. That's cannibalism. You're not meant to do that.
I always feel quite strange about chicken omelettes. I feel like there's something a bit strange about putting a chicken in. Well, it's actually, I think it's a kosher thing, actually. But I think there is just something a little bit creepy about putting chicken and an egg together.
Well, we've had a letter from Peter, the animal rights group, asking us if we could consider not selling pork and pig products during Peppa Pig, and yes, we have agreed with them. That is the response from that theatre in Lincolnshire.
Not us, because of course we're eating pork on the set. But that's, Grimsby Auditorium, that's what they said. Good for them. Right, you two, let's move on to passengers crashing the system. This is in the Telegraph because, Jonathan, the chief executive of Heathrow has said that the airport actually isn't that busy. It's just foreigners going the wrong way when they turn up. Europeans walking on the right, we walk on the left.
I mean, I don't really understand this story, because when you're in an airport, you're
just going to keep eating.
You're just going to walk. You just walk any which way, don't you? You just walk. I'm going to walk to this shop or that shop. I never knew there was like a lane system in place. They were meant to be walking on one side.
I appreciate that he said it's the wrong way rather than just a different way, insinuating that we are correct. I do. You're right, though. Everybody just sort of like bashes into each other, don't they? But
I had no idea.
The airports are both busy and chaotic. They can be both at the same time.
I mean, people are literally walking in different directions, because some gates are to the left, some gates to the right. People will be... I've never noticed the fact that we tend to walk on the left And
do you not see this on with tourists when they come to London, when they go on London Underground, they don't understand the left and right split on the escalator?
I think that on the escalators, I've been to on escalators around in different places, and you always stand on the right and walk on the left.
I know. I find that really odd because when I'm abroad, I'd always walk on the correct side of the escalator, and surely it's exactly the same. You know, in Paris, the system works in exactly the same way.
Paris,
so what
Berlin,
excuse is there for the behaviour of tourists on the London Underground?
I think it's more that. And I've noticed this particularly in London. I think people are just not really as self-aware as they used to be when they're out in public. People are maybe like walking and looking at their phones. If you think about when you go to the supermarket on a weekend and it's very busy and everybody's sort of crashing into each other and getting in the way and people just stop suddenly. I think people have, I don't know, maybe it's a post-pandemic thing, but people just seem to not be aware of where they are in relation to other people when they're in busy
people
places.
Stopping still is there, and also another bugbear. I have talked about this on television before, actually, so it's a little bit weird that I'm mentioning it again now. But people who kind of wave their arms back and forward
as they walk.
There's no biological imperative to do that. And when you do that, and it's a crowded space, you do risk hitting men in a quite delicate part of their anatomy.
Well,
so
we
I
don't want
encourage
that,
people to keep their arms by their sides. There's no need for you to wave them.
Such a strange public appeal. Yeah, there we go. All right, we're escalating in seriousness in this because we've done me eating a bacon sandwich and Peppa Pig. We've covered on the crowd's crisis at Heathrow, but let's move on now to Jim Ratcliffe and the United situation. Emma, I'm going to start with you because he's now said sorry because his choice of language has offended some people, which is that wonderful non-apology.
He sort of said sorry.
Yes, indeed. It's that partial apology, saying other people are upset about what I said.
Yeah, I think Josh Howie last night on the late edition of Patrick's show suggested that this isn't really an apology, that it's a sort of ironic way of apologising. I don't think he should have apologised at all. I think he's perfectly entitled to what he said. I don't think it's an unreasonable position. I think 5 years ago he would have been completely cancelled and sort of hung, drawn and quartered for it. But I don't think he should have apologised, but I do think it was a very interesting choice of words, as you said.
They tried. I mean, there was an attempt to carry out a medieval execution. Was there not? I mean, there was a lot of hectoring, and people were making...
that's what medieval executions involved, Charlie.
What?
I don't think it was hectoring.
No, I'm referring to the hanging, the drawing and the quartering.
Okay.
But I think the Overton window has shifted significantly enough now that the mob isn't quite as powerful.
Well, talking of that, Jonathan, the FA is reportedly looking into whether he's brought football into disrepute. I mean, as Emma says, surely the Overton window has shifted far enough that we can't really be having those conversations. Isn't that a bit excessive?
I sort of feel like football has maybe been brought into disrepute a little bit.
Football brings itself.
I mean, if you grew up in the 90s, you know that sort of football was not particularly reputable in those days. It's become more reputable since. But look, the fundamental point here is that you are entitled to have whatever views you like, obviously, and it's legitimate to make arguments about immigration. I won't agree with them, but it's legitimate to make those arguments. But when you're in a position of extreme power and privilege, and you are yourself an immigrant, a tax exile in Monaco, and I wonder how good his Monegasque is, by the way, since he's talking about people integrating into that society.
But Jonathan, you're making the exact same mistake. Jonathan, you're making a mistake.
He's talking about colonise. The word colonise is the word that I take exception to. Anyone who's experienced colonisation would be able to tell you that's not what has happened in Britain.
Have you not seen that advert on the Tube that says, which jokes about a reverse colonisation going on? People on the left often use this language and then get appalled when it gets called out. But anyway, I think we're focusing way too much on language and not actually at the heart of the issue.
Well, he used language. He didn't do it through the medium of
I
dance,
know, but everyone knows what he's talking about, which is that, rapid social change in Britain, economic migration.
Okay, but that's not what he was apologising for. He was apologising for his language.
I know, but that's the point. We're getting away from the real issues and talking about language.
But that's the whole point. He's not apologising for his view.
I accept that. I'm not making that. People have even asked him, saying, do you think that Manchester United players are economic migrants? And people are deliberately mixing up high-income work visas, high-skilled migration, pretty good footballers at United nowadays, with the thing that people are really concerned about, which is low-skilled mass migration.
Okay, fine.
That's the issue.
We can talk about that, but that's not why he's apologised. We are talking about the fact that he's apologised. The reason he's apologised is that he used very, very crass and inappropriate language. So obviously it's a question about language. We can have a conversation about migration and numbers, and my goodness, Charlie, I think we do that.
Yeah, well, we do here, but I think all too often people don't. They were trying to distract it and make it more into a discussion about language and the real issues. But not on GB News, thankfully.
Thank you very much for Jonathan and Emma for joining us there. But now here's your 60-second news update with Sophia Wensler.
Good morning. Your headlines at 11:31. Palestine Action has won a High Court challenge against the Home Office's decision to ban it as a terror group. However, it will remain outlawed for now to allow further arguments, and the Home Secretary has said the government will appeal. World leaders are arriving for talks at the Munich Security Conference today, and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned Europe of a new era in geopolitics ahead of his major speech. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the Prime Minister has faced a Whitehall revolt over his decision to sack Britain's most senior civil servant. The Times is reporting that the government officials refused to sign off on the move because it would cost the taxpayer £250,000 that could not be justified. Elsewhere, US President Donald Trump has reversed a key Obama-era scientific ruling that underpins all federal actions on curbing planet-warming gases. And two Met Office yellow weather warnings are in force for snow and ice across Scotland and northern England as Arctic air makes a chilly return. Those are your headlines for now. We'll have more news for you at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Right, coming up at noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily.
Who could possibly be here? Who could be sitting next to me? Well, everyone, welcome her back. It's the one and only Emily Carver.
Tom, I've missed you so much.
Oh,
I had to just pop in for the day.
It's been the best part of half a year since we've sat next to each other at this desk. But
I can't believe it's been that long.
I know.
Time flies, eh? You haven't changed a bit.
Do you know what? It's been more than that because it's been about half a year since your baby was born, but
It's been about 5.5 months since I last sat with you.
Not counting.
Wow.
August the 22nd it was.
Every second away from him. It's so good to have you back, mate.
No, it's been hard watching you, Tom, you know, do the show so beautifully without me.
Well, do you know, it hasn't felt exactly the same without you. So we've got
Hasn't felt exactly the same.
Treading carefully there to
Not that I can't say anything right here, can I? I'm either going to annoy my two lovely temporary co-hosts or my wonderful permanent co-host.
Let's just say everyone's fabulous.
Everyone's wonderful.
I'm delighted to be back, and I know Tom has written, I think, 3 articles this week, but I've also got an article on the GB News website.
Announcing your return, discussing
my return, a little bit about how motherhood sort of shapes your way of thinking. Makes me feel like GB News is even more important. So there you go. Have a little read of that.
Your family grows, but you're a core part of this family too. That sort of feeling?
That's so sweet, yes.
I don't think there is anyone more part of the GB News family than the Carver Christie's household. I mean,
Baby George himself is the epitome.
Yeah, he doesn't know it yet. But,
you know the G in GB News actually stands for George. I mean, you are not back permanently yet.
No.
This is sort of a phased return.
A phased return, something like that. Something like that. We've got to, you know, leave people
wanting
thinking,
more.
wondering. Yeah, wanting more.
What are you going to be talking about on your show?
Oh, just each other, really.
Just enough in between Tom and Emily.
We're going to be talking about the serious news, of course, what's going on at the heart of government, and also this ruling on Palestine Action. But we're also going to be talking about Valentine's Day.
Oh, yes.
Tom's got some secret hot tips for us.
Do I?
Apparently.
They're very secret. I haven't even told myself.
It's Valentine's Day tomorrow, if people have forgotten.
It is. We're also going to be talking to Catherine Forster, who's going to be live from Munich alongside the Prime Minister. I'm particularly keen to ask her, how's he doing?
Yes.
How's he looking? You know, is this a guy that's strutting around the world stage as if he's sort of on top of the world, or is this a guy that just looks like he's about to give up?
He did look rather exhausted, didn't he, leaving Parliament earlier in the week, leaving that Parliamentary Labour Party meeting with the women's group. Sleepy in the back of the car.
Gosh.
Yeah, he's getting it very much from the left, isn't he? And also, shocking story about this nursery worker convicted of sexual offences. We're going to be debating, now this is controversial, whether men should be allowed to work in nurseries.
I did a tour of a nursery the other day, and there were lots of mums saying they didn't like the idea of that nursery because men were working there. I think it's a really, really interesting debate, and I look forward to watching that. But the Tom and Emily show has not begun yet. We're still here on Britain's Newsroom, and up next, Glasgow has been branded as a migrant magnet as homeless applications surge. Find out why. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. For many of us, it is another wet day, but actually across the north, we have clearer, sunnier skies and also colder air making its way through. There's an area of low pressure just to the southwest of us at the moment. This is shifting a bit further southwards as we go through the day, and a front makes its way southwards as well. And it's this front that's bringing a lot of cloud, a lot of rain across central parts of England and Wales at the moment, also some hill snow. Further outbreaks of rain towards the south as well, and all of this is shifting southwards. That's allowing for the sunnier skies across Scotland and Northern Ireland to edge a bit further south as well, but worth noting there are a few showers here and there. Despite the sunshine in the north, temperatures a bit suppressed, mid-single figures at best. Some places towards the south may just about scrape into double digits. Through this evening then, a largely fine end to the day across many places, albeit quite a chilly start to the night with those clear skies. Watch out for a few showers towards northern parts of Scotland, and these could be a wintry mix of some sleet and snow. Lots of clear skies to start the night across Northern Ireland. A cloudier story though across England and Wales. More rain to come and still a bit of hill snow at times. But as we go through the rest of the day and overnight, we're going to see a lot of this cloud, a lot of this rain clearing away. And whilst there will be a few showers dotted around, mainly towards the north of Scotland and down the eastern side of England, most places will turn largely dry with largely clear skies as well. And with those clear skies then, temperatures are going to drop. Widely, we're going to see them falling a bit below freezing, but we could get as low as -10 Celsius in some parts of Scotland. That does mean we're going to wake up to a frosty and, for many of us, icy start to the day tomorrow, but it is going to be largely sunny. Just a couple of showers here. A bit more cloud pushing in from the west, mainly high-level clouds, so just turning the sunshine milky to begin with before some wet weather arrives later on. Temperatures, well, lower than today, but there will be more sunshine around.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdley, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 12 when you're watching Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Olivia. We're heading up to Glasgow now because the Scottish Conservatives have branded the city a magnet for asylum seekers.
Yes, figures from a Freedom of Information request show that homeless applications in Glasgow from people from outside Scotland have surged by more than 3,500%. GB News reporter, Scotland reporter Tony Maguire joins us now. Tony, what on earth is going on here? Homeless applications surging by 3,500%. That's not just a coincidence, is it?
No, absolutely not. And good morning to the both of you. You know, here really on the pre-election trail in Scotland, and it's not unusual that parties come forward with these papers. Today, the Scottish Conservatives brought forward their housing paper. You know, it's full the usual things of plans to build houses, cut taxes and improve rates, but in that is a Freedom of Information request which shows these startling figures. Now, specifically, these numbers relate to people who are claiming, making a homeless claim in Glasgow from outside of Scotland, and in the 3 years since 2022, yeah, that shot up by a staggering 3,500%. In fact, back in 2022, 23, around the time that the Scottish Government changed the law so that you didn't have to have a connection to a local community to claim homelessness there, they have made it so that anybody can apply for homelessness in that city. And of course, Glasgow has become what has been called the migrant capital of the UK due to its dispersal status. So 35 used this system back in 2022-23, and in the 3 years since, that's ballooned to nearly 4,500 people, 76% of which are actually come from outside the UK, not just from outside Scotland. So Shadow Housing Secretary Megan Gallagher, who I spoke to earlier on today, she's under no illusions what's led to these ballooning figures.
Been a 3,500% increase in the number of people coming to various communities in Scotland, but most particularly Glasgow, which has become the asylum capital of the UK. And what we are seeing is that this is because of SNP virtue signalling policies, such as the removal of the local connection back in 2022 that allows for many people to come to these particular communities, putting a lot of strain on the infrastructure and public services. So we know that people are coming from all across the UK, but of course we know that there's many illegal immigrants that are coming to Scotland as well, and they're coming to big cities and big towns right across the country in order to find housing. But the problem that we have is there's simply no housing there for people to be housed, and that's something that's widely known, and that's why that Scotland had to declare a housing emergency. What we need to do is make sure that we're building more homes. That's why today we are announcing that we would build 80,000 homes by 2031.
Now, you may remember last spring it became apparent that Glasgow City Council leader, an SNP-run council, called on the UK government, Yvette Cooper, to put a pause on Glasgow's dispersal city status. Well, it might be that now the Glasgow City Council, the SNP-led council, needs to turn to the SNP government to make a reconsideration about this rule change.
Live for us in Scotland, thank you very much for that report.
Well, up next, has Sir Tony Blair got Net Zero Secretary Ed Miliband in his crosshairs?
But first, let's take a look at the forecast from the top European destinations. Stay with us here only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Having seen so much stormy weather across parts of Western Europe recently, finally a change is on the way. It's still windy this weekend in Spain, Portugal and across much of Italy. Spells of rain moving in here, reaching eventually parts of Greece and Croatia. But it is looking drier and brighter for much of Spain and Portugal despite that strong wind. And that steady improvement continues into next week. Still breezy with showers around, but not as stormy as it has been.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here to GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the
because
failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Now, the Tony Blair Institutes have called for the country to ditch its energy strategy away from Ed Miliband's net zero drive.
Yes, the think tank want the country to push for cheaper power, arguing Labour risk Britain's place in the world by pursuing solar and wind energy.
Well, joining us now in the studio is the Tony Blair Institute Senior Advisor on Energy Policy, Tone Langenjen. Thank you so much for joining us. Talk us through your report then, Tone. What are you discovering and what are you calling for?
Well, look, so our kind of starting point here is that we need an energy strategy reset. The world has changed and Britain's energy strategy has not changed with it. There's a number of things that's happened. Interest rates have gone up, so renewables have got more expensive. We're seeing the return of hard power, which means that energy is becoming increasingly strategic for the future of the economy. So what we're basically calling for there is for Britain to ditch its Clean Power 2030 mission, which is risking higher electricity costs at a time where electricity is key, and instead focus on cheaper energy.
I mean, Ed Miliband has been warned about this time and time again, but he just seems to keep digging his heels in further and further. Do you think that your report is going to make any difference? Or are you actually, subtly perhaps, suggesting that Keir Starmer should get rid of his Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, and perhaps replace him with someone a bit more practical?
I mean, look, our point here is that we think that the energy policy needs to change. So that's really what we're calling for here. I think there was a time and a place for Clean Power 2030, but that's gone. So that's our focus, really. So we will be continuing to kind of make this point to the government and get them to change tack.
Could you give us... Sorry.
That's fine. When you speak to senior advisors in government, when you engage with people about energy policy, and when you speak to them about that 2030 goal, I think it's been referred to as a moonshot approach, going so far to try and get that cut down in emissions. Are you sensing a shift in their understanding of how quickly we can get there, or is this still sort of a rigid ideological approach?
No, I mean, look, I think what we've seen from the government until now is that they have kind of toned down slightly in terms of, you know, we started at 100%, 95, now we're kind of probably closer to 90. So there is a shift there and a kind of more pragmatic approach to it. But I think what we saw with the recent offshore wind allocation round, for instance, was that the government prioritised massive volumes of offshore wind rather than keeping the costs down. So it's still showing that kind of clean power, net zero drive is what's driving policy.
We keep hearing these sort of huge figures, but can you just explain to our viewers what will happen to, for example, their own family energy bills if Ed Miliband does indeed push ahead with this 2030 net zero plan?
I mean, look, it's actually really hard to really predict what's going to happen with energy bill because it depends on so many different factors like global gas prices and also, you know, how often the wind blows, frankly. But I think what energy bosses have been warning is that we might see a kind of 20% increase if nothing changes. And I think that is really, really difficult for families that's already struggling with their energy bills as it stands. So we need to kind of turn the tide on that and start seeing that reduction instead.
Some of the proposed solutions that you're putting forward here then would be quite a significant change from the current approach. Subsidies for renewable energy at the moment, you think, far too high. And what do you make also of the current stance on sort of electric cars and how we're dealing with that issue as well? Subsidy going too far?
Look, I think the most important way that you get people to change from petrol and diesel cars to electric cars is if it's cheaper, right? People want a cheaper, better car. I actually think that electric vehicles have come really far, and there's some really great models out there. But the next phase now needs to be to get electricity cheaper, so that makes sense for people financially rather than using petrol. And that's why that mission needs to change.
Proponents of the free market have always said that instead of subsidising clean energy, you should just let the market fight it out and the good companies will rise to the top. What do you think about that?
Look, I think we need way more market forces in this debate, and I think that is like core to what we're proposing here. This is why you need to reform the energy market so that you get the right incentives there to kind of unleash that creative destruction, I suppose. The problem, though, is that renewables is slightly different. So I think that's why.
Tony Yang, thank you very much from the Tony Blair Institute. That's it from us at Britain's Newsroom, which you've been watching and listening to. What's up next?
Well, up next is Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily, but we'll be back to see you tomorrow on Saturday Morning Live.
The Prime Minister has lost his Cabinet Secretary now. That follows in with him losing his Director of Communications and Chief of Staff. Our political correspondent Catherine Foster catches up with him in Germany. How's he doing?
Yes, and also the government has lost at the High Court. Yes, the High Court has ruled that the ban of Palestine Action was in fact unlawful. What happens next?
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Finally, a change in the weather is on the way. Initially today, it's going to feel cold as a different air mass arrives from the north, and as that colder air mixes with milder but wetter weather further south, in between we will see some snow. We're already seeing snow across the North York Moors, parts of the Pennines, even at some lower levels, chance of snow. But over the hills, 2 to 5 centimetres by lunchtime. 10 centimetres over the peaks. Now, it's going to feel cold across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but much brighter skies finally arrive here. Having seen 3 weeks without the sun in Aberdeen, finally a bright day with plenty of sunny spells. But that cold feel and further sleet or snow showers coming into the north of Scotland, predominantly places exposed to the north wind, but southeast Scotland also seeing some sleety showers coming through. Northern Ireland, plenty of clear skies as we end the day and go into the evening, a marked contrast compared with the weather throughout much of the year so far. But for much of England and Wales, we've still got the cloud, we've still got the showery rain. However, as the colder air in the north mixes in with those outbreaks of rain, could be some sleet or snow at lower levels through the Midlands, parts of Wales and eventually southern England as the whole system moves through. Any snow, though, very temporary, doesn't last, moves through, and then widely clear skies to begin the weekend. A widespread frost. First one of those we've seen for some time. But plenty of sunshine first thing Saturday, and despite the crisp start with light winds and those bright blue skies, a much more positive spell of weather, albeit just for a few hours this Valentine's Day. A few showers around some eastern and western and northern coasts. The cloud builds in the west later ahead of the next band of rain, but throughout much of Saturday afternoon, sunny skies.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
you could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 13th of February. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver. Palestine Action, yes, they've won a High Court challenge over the government's decision to ban the group as a terrorist organisation, a ruling the government will appeal.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is abroad again, this time in Germany, to face European allies and lay out his big plan for security, with Moscow firmly in the sights. But back home, another resignation rocks number 10.
It does indeed. Elsewhere, new government advice on gender identity has sparked backlash. Claims children as young as 4 years old could change their pronouns at school.
We will drill, baby, drill.
Yes, indeed. Drill, baby, drill. Sir Tony Blair's think tank calls on Labour to open up the North Sea again. But the question now is, will Ed Miliband listen?
And elsewhere, MPs are preparing to vote on giving 16-year-olds the ballot. Some long-standing critics, like Tom Harwood, my friend here, say if that's the case, why not let 12-year-olds too?
Now, there is method to the madness of my long-standing Votes at 12 campaign, but we'll perhaps get to that a little bit later in the programme.
You just want to show that clip of him looking all cute.
It wasn't that long ago. Anyway, welcome back, Emily. Does it feel sort of right to be back at the helm of the desk?
It does actually, yeah. It feels like I haven't been away.
It is actually remarkable
how blending back in.
Yeah, it does just sort of click back in immediately and sort
I
of
think
feel
so, like riding a bike.
Yes.
I've heard anyway. So there you go. You never forget that.
Who's the bike in this metaphor?
You're the bike, Tom. You're the bike. You're the studio's bike.
Right, OK.
All right, yes, it's fantastic to be back.
It is, although a bit of a pretentious day to be back. It is, of course, Friday the 13th. I mean, I hope nothing goes wrong.
Yeah, it's not a great idea to come back, is it?
But I'm sure it'll be fine.
Sure it'll be fine, yeah. What could go wrong, eh?
Nothing could possibly go wrong on a day like Friday the 13th.
Well, don't know what he's got planned. Don't know what he's got planned for me. I sense that something might be afoot.
Do you know what? I think something might have already gone wrong, but more on that later. Of course, do get your thoughts in. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved in all of the conversations that we're having today throughout the programme.
Yes, I do want your thoughts on this Palestine Action ruling. So the government chose to ban this group, and now the High Court have ruled against them. The government now saying that they're going to pursue this further. What a mess. And what an unnecessary win for Palestine Action now.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to be discussing that and so much more after your very latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Tom, Emily, thank you, and good afternoon. It's just gone 12 o'clock. These are your headlines. Palestine Action has won a High Court challenge against